Chicago, a city torn by violence with a reputation feared by tourists and a negative perception created by the news media. But if you read through the microcosm of this city, it isn't all negative. This week's special guest is William DuBose, born to Chicago's Robert Taylor housing projects. DuBose will tell his gripping story of growing up in the Bronzeville neighborhood and mean streets of Chicago's South Side. And his powerful story will create lots of followers as we learn who he's become today through the secret weapon of education. Just when America has reached her breaking point with division, visionary influencer Danni Benson's I'm Proud of You Sis Bro movement taps into the pulse and heartbeat of a culture radically torn. But this loving mom's voice of reason and calm has received national recognition. Live from downtown Studio 305 in Belmore, New York, Danni Benson's I'm Proud of You Sis and Bro, with tonight's special guest, William DuBose.
Hi, my name is Danni from I'm Proud of You Sis, and I have a very special guest. His name is William DuBose. He is one of the best interior designers that I know of, and he is going to be featured in Traditional Home Magazine this July, so look for him. Great architectural work. I want him to come and do my home, so I'm so excited. And he is a Chicago native. So everyone, please meet Will DuBose Jr. Hi, Will.
Hello, everyone. And hi, Danni. How are you?
Fine. How are you? I just want to say I'm proud of you, bro. This is like, I'm so proud. You don't understand how I'm so proud of you. Like, you put your dreams into action. And you are doing phenomenal. I was looking at your bio and just looking at all the magic you turn into homes, into these beautiful, like, treasure pieces. And I just want to give you a cigars because you're super amazing. And I just want to let you know I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I wanted to say I'm proud. I'm happy to be here, and I'm proud of you as well. Thank you so much. Really. I've known you for a very long time, and I appreciate where you've tried to lift me up and bring me to, and I just appreciate all of that. Thank you.
Good. I just want to dive into you're a Chicago native, and in the news we hear so much about Chicago when it comes to the Black community, but to me, I feel like it's more of a negative depiction of Chicago. And I know there has to be a lot of positive stories out there, or maybe you need to let the audience know what's actually going on in Chicago as pertaining to gangs and the shootings. And the last time we talked about how the unemployment is high in the African-American community from 18 to 25 years old. So just tell me your early life in Chicago and what got you into interior design.
Okay, and let me preface all this with the fact that I'm not a historian, but I just know my story, and I have tons of friends. I know the Chicago experience, and I have tons of friends who share their experiences with me too. So I appreciate that. I was born and raised in Chicago in the early 70s, and I grew up there on the south side of Chicago, a neighborhood called Auburn Gresham. Auburn Gresham neighbors on Inglewood, and it's basically an area that when we were young, Auburn Gresham, you could not cross this one street, Western Avenue. If you cross Western Avenue, then that was like the white part of town. But as we got older, the whites moved from our part of town, and it became a great Black community. It was a great Black community, and as time progressed, the neighborhood now is nicknamed Killer Ward. So as we got older, by I think 1996, it had one of the highest mortality rates in the city. And I'm not saying that to say that Chicago they're starting to do the work. There's just a lot of work Chicago has to do, but they're starting to do the work. And at that time, I think Chicago hadn't dealt with the issues that they created maybe years and years ago, back during the early, during the early migration, where African Americans came from the South up to Chicago. I don't think that they dealt with the planning issues, the redlining issues, the issues they had over housing, the issues they had with like basically separating African Americans from white folk in the city of Chicago.
So, okay, so it's interesting that you said that there was a street that you couldn't cross because it was the white area. So why didn't you cross it? Was it like an invisible line? Like if you crossed it, you would get in trouble? Just explain to me as a child, like, you know, why wouldn't you guys cross the line?
Well, I think, so Chicago's funny. It has so many different neighborhoods. And I think the biggest part of the neighborhood system in Chicago is that it's black versus white, where it's black and it's white, or you're in the north part of town, they're Indians, or you're in Chinatown. And then the next thing you know, from Chinatown, you cut to Bridgeport, and then boom, you cross the highway and you're in an area called Bronzeville. And now Bronzeville used to be this thriving black community that in the 50s turned into public housing along the highway. And if you cross that highway, you get right back into this white neighborhood. And the police would actually, you had these like invisible dividers that would separate neighborhoods. And the police would actually take kids from these black communities from Bronzeville and drop them off over in Bridgeport, which was probably one of the most one of the most brutal parts of town if you're an African American.
And why would they do that?
They did it because Chicago's it's the most segregated city in America. That either Chicago or Boston, the top two segregated cities in America. You can check it out. Check my facts there. Yeah.
Wow, I did not know that about Chicago at all. That's very interesting. So because of the segregation, I guess the opportunities are not there for young males, especially in the community, where that leads to violence, where you're saying it was called a killer ward. Because if you don't have good education, and if you don't have jobs for these kids, what other options do they have to survive? They're going, if they're not busy, like my parents used to tell me, like, if I don't keep you girls busy, you're gonna get into trouble. So my parents used to always keep us busy. So if the kids aren't being busy, then here comes killer ward. Is that correct?
I think so. I also think too that I don't know. I think Chicago's it's a great city, but it definitely has work to do. I think that the young people in Chicago need opportunities. They need opportunities. They need they're in like deserts, food deserts. They're in job deserts where you have to travel an hour and a half just to take the bus to get downtown so you can work a minimum wage job. And I don't think that's fair. It's not fair for people. And just to, even graduating college, I worked for a few months as a security guard, and I traveled an hour and a half just to get to my job as a security guard downtown. You got to take the bus to a long train, and then you walk from the train to get somewhere downtown. And it's just not fair. I think that there's a lot of opportunity where I think the young people in Chicago may need to be mentored by the older people and see the value that they have in these neighborhoods. When you look at places like New York, and you look at these metropolitans, you look at these cities where it's so diverse and they can't really segregate people like that, and you see the value that neighborhoods have, then I think we need something like that. I think that's the step.
Well, two questions. When you say it's a desert, where did that terminology come from? Explain to me.
Well, that the idea is behind it is a food desert, where you can't get healthy food, you can't get organic produce, can't find a market. And I forget what it takes. I can't even, I don't even want to say, but it just takes too long to get to a market where you can get healthy food. So people end up going to the corner store where you can get chips and you can get a soda. You can't even make a sandwich. Maybe you can make a sandwich at times. And they're just like, oily, greasy burgers or whatever you can get. And I think that's how a lot of us lived growing up, and we just had no other choice. We just didn't.
So basically, manufacturers like Amazon, Google, are not even trying to start new warehouses there that would hopefully bring opportunities to the community. Like right now, where I live, there's like 3 Whole Foods that just opened up.
Wow. Yeah. See, that's great.
And the crazy thing is when you're telling me that these people have to take mass transportation, does that mean that most of them don't have cars? Because sometimes when you have a car, you could get there quicker than taking the train and the bus.
Yeah, a lot of people don't have cars, and then also, parking is a big mess downtown Chicago. But even just traveling around Chicago, I'm starting to see, not starting to see, but I go back to Chicago often, at least maybe once a month, and I see businesses popping up. I see small Black businesses popping up, and I think that that's very important, because I think the youth, if they don't have a job and they have to travel an hour and a half to go to work and come back home, then you're traveling, like, let's say you work an 8 to 5 job, and then you got an extra 3 hours out of your day that you're traveling to and from work. I don't think that's fair. You can't be present for your family, for your kids. It's just not a productive environment. So what I'm thinking, I'm proposing is that we have these opportunities that we create for ourselves, whether it's selling water, whether it's creating your own enterprising business. I think that's the biggest move that we can make. I have my local alderman where I grew up, and where I'm probably at, and I'm going to have a place there soon. My local alderman is creating opportunities in the 79th Street corridor, where he's bringing more business back to the area. I think that's important. People can say, like, what you do doesn't matter, but everything matters. If you're selling water and the markup is 5 times over what you bought it for, I mean, that's the viable business that leads you into something else. And you learn about the market, you learn about losses, you learn about all aspects of business. I think that's the next frontier right there, is find out what we have in our neighborhoods. This might sound crazy, but might sound prejudiced, but I think oftentimes we don't value our neighborhoods until we have white folk moving into them, and then we see
gentrified. When it's gentrified, you hear people go, "Oh my goodness, no, I can't believe they're coming here," and I'm like, well, you had the area for like decades, right, and you did nothing with it. I mean, but maybe they couldn't do anything with it because maybe the banks wasn't loaning them money to do something with it. I mean, it's like a complicated thing. When gentrification comes, now comes the banks, now comes the Whole Foods, now comes all of this stuff.
True. We get
that you didn't have before. So if I'm living, for example, like Harlem, I remember we used to go to Harlem all the time. It used to just be street vendors. There was no main source like companies coming in to Harlem. So basically those companies were telling African Americans that you're not even worthy enough for us to come here, for us to sell to you. But I noticed when gentrification started happening little by little, now I go to Harlem and I feel like it's like a mini Manhattan. There's a Zara's, there's Starbucks, there's all these like stores that we know, like household names, but they weren't there when the community was majority Black, Hispanic or Black or brown people.
Yeah, I think you're a complete right. I mean, that's a really good point that I hadn't brought up, that I hadn't thought about actually. It's just even the people aren't valued enough to say, hey, we're going to invest in you. And now they're starting to do that in little pockets. I was shortlisted for the Southwest Invest initiatives in Chicago. So hopefully we can create some sort of change in the next few months by doing some architecture. I think it's like a $750 million investment on the South Side and the West Side of Chicago. But I think that's a really good point as far as like believing in the people there. And that's a whole nother subject, in that people tend to like look at the South Side as outsiders. They look at the West Side. It used to be when I was growing up, the West Side was so underdeveloped. Now the West Side has started to pick up really well, and the South Side has gone. It needs work. It needs work. There are like so many vacant lots, and there's so much work to do. And again, I'm going back to that idea of people having people needing someone, or like needing companies and people to believe in them. It's just a really true point. Got to hit that. What hits home is when I think about a good buddy of mine I grew up with, and a lot of my friends, and they get caught up in the get caught up in the penal system. They get caught up in go to jail. I had a friend who went to college. He was a valedictorian, got caught driving 3 times without a license. Now, yeah, he did wrong, but the guy was like a landmark case. They gave him 2 years in jail. He first got locked up. And this is another, like a college student, no violent crimes, no nothing. 2 years in jail. They locked him up with like, he initially got locked up with murderers and psychos. And he's telling me like, look, I'm telling the guards, like, I'm not supposed to be here. And they're just basically just setting up, they're setting him up for the worst. And he got locked up for 6 years. He said when he got locked up, or when he was sentenced, the courtroom just said, everyone just threw their hands up. Like, why would this happen? One day he's a valedictorian, the next day he's locked up for driving without a license. Now, mind you, 3 times, but yeah. Now, another thing too, I'll tell you one more thing. I'm sorry, Danny.
No, it's okay.
Another thing is just, yeah, people believe in you. People believe that as far as, I'm going on a little tangent here, but as far as Black men are concerned, the rate, when I was in Chicago, the last time I was living in Chicago, the rate at which incarceration for Black men, it was 70 times over. So 70 times over white men. So if you were a Black person committing the same crime, you were 70 times more likely to do jail time for that crime. 70 times more likely. That's like,
well, it's because they're Black. And that's why I feel like every crime throughout the whole country, from east to west, north to south of the United States of America, should have like, everyone should be on the same page.
Exactly.
No matter what color you are, if your license is suspended 3 times, then you get probation or up to 1 year. Exactly. That's it. So justice is blind, right? You go to these places sometimes where the prejudice come into play, and they see a Black and brown and they want to give them more time, versus that they see a white child and they're like, oh, they make excuses for white children all the time. Even with the mass shooting, sometimes it's always like, oh, they had mental health issues, like it had mental health. But when it's Black or brown, it's like, yeah, give them the key, throw away the key. They're just a bad child and they deserve to have the maximum. And it's like, the person is a child.
Exactly.
Stop looking at the color of somebody's skin, because you might be ruining someone for the rest of their life. Look at the guy, just a non-violent crime gets thrown with like murderers. What do you think you're gonna have when he comes back out?
Exactly. Or you create
a chip on his shoulder. He's gonna be upset because he knows his counterpart, who's white, wouldn't even get that many years in jail. And then now you just destroy this child or this young man or this adult's self-esteem. And what products do you expect from him after that?
Exactly. Yep.
So it amazes me how this country don't see like what's actually going on. And the reason that Black and browns aren't as successful as they want them to be is because they don't value them.
Exactly. Yeah. They
don't value them, because if they valued them, they would give them those opportunities. Because I look at the news all day long. Oh, there's work, there's jobs. Everything's open. We need workers. I know a lot of people who are looking for work that can't get a job.
Exactly. That's true.
So it just amazes me how you lived in Chicago and you became an interior designer. So tell me what happened as a child.
So growing up, my grandmother lived in the projects called the Robert Taylor housing projects. Robert Taylor, it was named after this architect, Robert Taylor. He was the first, I believe he's the first African-American architect in the country, right? And Robert Taylor, I think he'd gone to MIT. So they created these projects. Chicago had the largest public housing system. You're talking about towers and towers and towers for 3 miles minimum, 3 miles along what's called I-94, the Dan Ryan Expressway. And it was just basically miles and miles of towers. So as a kid, I grew up there and I saw the like modern style architecture, just square boxes it was built in the 50s, late 40s, 50s, I believe. And I saw that and I had that experience. I saw the sculptures, I saw the graffiti, I saw the commission graffiti in my neighborhood, in a neighborhood called Bronzeville in Chicago. I also saw like things, my mom would take us to neighborhoods like the Beverly Hills or Beverly in Chicago. She'd take us to the north side. She'd take us to places where sometimes we weren't wanted and car gets stopped, but we see other people living different ways. We see other architecture, and I always had a fascination with the way people live and the artwork. I just had a fascination with it.
Wow.
And art was the way for me to just calm myself down. It still is a way for me to just lower my anxiety and just chill. Very cathartic for me. So ends up that I got the opportunity after high school. I got the opportunity to go to Italy. And I was always, you know, just kind of searching for something to do that would get me out of the neighborhood. And
how did you get an opportunity to go to Italy? Like, how did that happen?
I mean, I searched high and low. I had friends that were doing summer programs. They were doing work programs, and I just didn't find anything. So I searched high and low. Michigan, University of Michigan had an international program. They sent me to They sent me to Florence. I stayed in a villa out in Florence. It was beautiful. Stayed there for a couple months, traveled through northern Italy, like Pisa, Pistoia, Lucca, all over. And I saw just some great work. Now, in Chicago, I seen like Frank Lloyd Wright. I saw a lot of other folks, but I saw Michelangelo's work. Now, Michelangelo is famous for the Sistine Chapel, great paintings. But then I also saw next to the Santa Maria Novella, which is a beautiful like marble structure in Florence, which is probably one of my favorite cities over in Italy. Right next to that was the Rotunda, and Michelangelo had designed it. And I said, if he could do it, I could do it too. So I got back to Michigan. And when I got to Michigan, I ended up taking a term and went to Morehouse. And that was like one of the most supportive times I've ever had in my lifetime. I think it's one of the best schools you can attend at HBCUs. I'm 100% behind it. So then I go to Morehouse, and then after that, I go to Oxford University, and then I get into my architecture program, which was a 2-year program at the end of my first 2 years in undergrad. So it was a 4-year program altogether. Went back, got my master's, and now I've been practicing architecture since. I had to start off working for dollars an hour, and now it's gotten a lot better.
You know what? You know why I love your story so much? This is a prime example of if you give a child an opportunity, look where the child can go.
Yeah.
Like, this is like an amazing story, because if we can grab every child in Chicago and have them do like an exchange program. I mean, you know what's so crazy? I did an exchange program. I went to Russia.
Oh, you did? Wow.
I went to Russia.
Yeah.
I wanted to go someplace that nobody else went. And I was there for a semester.
Yes.
And it was like the best experience of my life, and it changed my life. These exchange programs, if you can get like each child from, you know, what they call it, like the projects.
Yes.
And get them out of the projects just for a semester, and exchange them and go to a place like Italy, France, like just to give them the opportunity to see the world. I think they come back with a different perspective.
Exactly. Yep.
Instead of them staying in the ghetto and just dealing with the life of the ghetto and not having hope. Because the ghetto, to me, I feel like it's like choking your neck. It makes you not breathe. Like I feel like they purposely put everyone there on top of each other, so their self-esteem is low. They see tragedy every single day. They don't see hope. You know, it's like the place is dirty because the city doesn't really take care of the place. Right. I mean, if you took every kid out and just gave them 6 months outside of their environment, oh my goodness, the world would change dramatically. For them to see how it is on the other side, they will come back with so much hope.
That's true. I get it. I think you're right. Like, there are some really phenomenal people that are in the hood where I grew up, and there are people, phenomenal people everywhere, Black people everywhere. And I think that just given that opportunity, like, I believe in you. I think, James Baldwin said, like, there are these kids that, I forget how he said it, but it went to the tune of, look, there are kids who are told that they're never going to be anything. And every day they look around, they step into their environment, and it shows them that they won't. So I think the opportunity should be there. If they leave the country or leave that environment, come back to it, you see how much that you could bring to it. You see how much strength you have within the group of people in your community. I think,
So what's left for you to accomplish?
now I'm working with a developer in Chicago. It's KMW Communities, working with them in Chicago, collaborating with Seek Architecture in Chicago. Got many friends out there who are like great developers and architects, and just really trying to be a part of the growth in Chicago, especially growth in these Black neighborhoods that I see where there's just so much potential. So some great people. There's Bill Williams at KMW Communities, Seek Architecture with Jason Nuttleman, and there's Guion Foreman. It's just some really big power brokers out there that are ready to make some change, and they've been investing the time in it for so long.
You know what would be amazing? You know what would be amazing? Because energy always flows through me. If all those people you just made started a nonprofit and mentor these kids to potentially maybe one day be like great architects, interior designers, just like you, like, you know, these kids need to be mentored. I mean, I had 3 great mentors, and without them, plus my parents and my loving family and great friends, I don't know where I would be. And I think mentorship is so important, especially for Black and brown children who don't get the opportunities as other races have. You know, if you guys could get together, that would be amazing. And, you know, I wanted to ask you a question. Did you ever see violence as a child?
Oh, all the time. I mean, it's funny. I definitely did. And it's definitely, you know, affected me to this day. But I'm like, I think at the age of 10, I kind of crossed the highway at the wrong point. And I was with my mom. I kind of walked to the store to get a soda. In Chicago, we call it a pop. And my neighborhoods I grew up in were all gangster disciples. So I'm walking to the store, and the guys are asking me where I'm from. And I'm like 10 or 11 years old. And I tell them, I'm from such and such place. Where is that? I said, look, I just pointed across the street. And next thing you know, I'm getting whooped. Like, I'm getting my butt kicked. And the guys were about to throw me in front of a bus. And I'm only 10 years old. It's about 10 kids. And that was one of my first times. I remember there's so many little stories, but look, coming from a neighborhood, like coming from Chicago, you're going on a date, just the simple things. You come home from school, you got to be an urban planner because you got to know which ways, which buses you can take through what neighborhoods, which ways you can travel. Every block by block is a situation. You got to be smart enough to know that. It's a block by block, it's a situation. And these neighborhoods are so well defined between the vice lords, or I think when I was younger, it's the traveling vice lords, the gangster disciples, the Black disciples, and they were all under 2 main groups. And it was a big issue with that. So you kind of had to always be mindful of that. And nobody likes busting their back.
Is there any way, is there anything that we can do as a community or a country to get rid of these gangs?
I think what it is, I think a lot of kids, my own opinion is, I think a lot of kids have a sense for belonging to something. They want to belong to something. I think that's the one thing that you
So
can.
where's the family?
Yeah.
Where's their family?
I mean, when you
that's like your first place of belonging. Where are the moms? Where are the dads? Where's the aunts? Where's the cousins? Where's the aunt? I mean, like, where's the family?
Yeah, there's a lot of trauma in our neighborhood. There's a lot of trauma in our communities, and I feel like that's the first thing we need is some sort of therapy to get through it. And I think we need to recognize that we do have that trauma because, number one, you got people who are traveling and going to work for like at least 11 to 12 hours a day. Now, when you come home, you got 8 hours of sleep or 6 or 7 hours of sleep, and then you get back to it. So you can't be present with your kids. Plus, you got this trauma, this generational trauma, that if you've ever listened to 1619, when they ended the Civil War and slaves were free, the enslaved people were free, the government did not even support health systems for these slaves. So you go to towns and you just see tons of Black folk laying in the streets dead. It was just like the pandemic times 10. And that's something that the government basically did not sponsor. And I think to this day, there's not enough attention, there's not enough care put into it. And I don't think we call our elected officials. We don't call them on that. And I think we don't call each other on that too. I think we really need to value what we have, where we are, and who we are. That's really important for us.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you so much. I am for coming on my show. I'm proud of you, sis. Featuring I'm proud of you, bro. I just wanted to give you your cigars. You are such a talented human being walking on this earth. And I want you to know I see you, I value you, I respect you, and I love you. I love your relationship with your daughter. And I love that you're trying to help the community that you once grew up in to make sure that this is a better situation for them from now and going on into the future.
Exactly. Thank you so much. I love you too, Danny, and appreciate you. You've always been a light. Thank you.
As part of the Chapters Network, Benson brings a weekly show aired worldwide on YouTube and Facebook, and her message is creating positive change. That's Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button.